Is the Ford F-150 still the best truck you can buy? Companies like Ram are really challenging this question. Keep watching to the end of this video because I'm going to tell you some things about Ram's new engine that you probably don't know. And I'll be honest, the things I'm going to tell you almost make me want to get a Ram 1500. As you guys know, I like to look at everything from a performance perspective, but in this video I briefly want to look at some of the other features as well. We are going to compare the F-150 and the Ram, specifically the Ram 1500 with the Hurricane engine in it. The Ford F-150 is literally one of the best trucks on the market right now. In 2024, the Ford F-Series was the best-selling vehicle of any kind. Ford has developed a reputation of popularity and durability. People like Cletus McFarland, Midnight Performance, and Houston Street Monsters, just to name a few, have really made the F-150 5.0 liter niche explode. The capability of those single cab short bed trucks is astounding to say the least. Ford started down a new path in 2011 with the release of their V6 Ecoboost engine. Countless videos of the Ecoboost beating V8s are all over the internet, and some companies realized that the naturally aspirated V8 was lacking a little bit. Interestingly enough, a few years ago we saw Toyota follow in Ford's footsteps with their own Ecoboost engine. And now Ram has done the same. Ram seemingly shocked all of us when they threw out the 6.2 liter V8, they threw out the 5.7 Hemi for a twin turbo straight six. Why on earth would you put a 6-cylinder in a truck, you might say? But gas mileage is one of the concerns that companies have. If you could make 600 horsepower with a V8 and get 10 miles per gallon, and then make 600 horsepower with a V6 and get 18 miles per gallon, it's worth the switch to a V6. Now you guys know me, and I like to say, it's about smiles per gallon, not miles per gallon. If I was buying a Ram TRX, I would want a 6.2 liter V8 in it, with a supercharger. But I think the technology that we have nowadays to make a 6-cylinder make the same horsepower as a V8 is pretty awesome. According to many people reviewing the Ford F-150 and the Ram 1500, Ford really has an edge in interior functionality and comfort. And both trucks are about the same with their on-the-road feel. Picking the truck for you really depends on what you want to do with it. Ford has a lead in the towing capability, and as it stands right now, Ram has a lead in the performance. The Hurricane engine comes in two different power levels, a high output and a standard output. The high output has 540 horsepower and 521 pound-feet of torque, and the standard output has 420 horsepower and 469 pound-feet of torque. The Ford F-150 has a lot more engine options than the Ram does, but the competing engine to the Hurricane is the 3.5 liter Ecoboost. On the F-150, there's also two versions of the 3.5 liter Ecoboost. One being 400 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque, and the other one being a hybrid with 430 horsepower and 570 pound-feet of torque. Clearly, the Ecoboost is more torquey than Ram's Hurricane engine due to the greater difference between the horsepower number and the torque number. Now here's a question, what kind of performance numbers have people gotten from the F-150 and the Ram? The Ram's high output engine has gotten around 4.2 seconds 0 to 60. Some people aren't sure on the accuracy of that number, but I tend to think that it's probably pretty close. There's so many variables with launching a truck and comparing times. For example, TfL Truck could not get their F-150 into the 5-second 0 to 60 range. I launched my 2022 3.5 liter F-150 in Denver, where TfL Truck is located, and I got a 5.7 second 0 to 60. And that was with my truck being completely stock. And some guys at sea level have gotten 5.2 seconds 0 to 60. But the Ram is clearly quicker because even on the standard output, they got a 4.9 second 0 to 60. Now you guys might be thinking, where is he going with this? But before I tell you what my next thoughts are, I'm gonna ask that you guys please like this video and go subscribe if you wanna see more truck content. But does this make me wanna get a Ram? Does this make me want to get a Ram 1500? I definitely would not give up my F-150 to get a Ram, but part of me wants one to mess around with. When Toyota came out with their new V6 Ecoboost engine, I was intrigued. But once I saw what it was capable of and that it was much slower than the Ford F-150 and that there weren't any new revelations with that engine, I lost interest in it really quick and was glad that I had my Ford F-150. But Ram's release of this Hurricane engine definitely has my interest. Sometimes it's really hard to believe a vehicle manufacturer's horsepower claims. For example, Ford claims 400 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque on the F-150 at the crank. So you get that loss of about 18% to the wheels. But on dynos, people have laid down 380 to 395, sometimes close to 400 horsepower at the wheels, and over 500 foot-pounds of torque at the wheels on the F-150. Ford claims those numbers on 87 octane fuel. So if you use premium fuel, the stock tune is going to increase some timing, and it's going to make a little bit more power than it does on 87 octane. And that brings me to the question, I wonder where Ram is on that. And if you guys know, definitely drop a comment down below. From a performance perspective only, I would say go with a Ram. Actually go with a Ford. That's probably not what you were expecting me to say. The Ram is faster, the Ford is slower. Why go with a Ford? If you're someone that's never going to modify your truck, then I would say go with the Ram if you're looking for performance. If you want to tune your truck and modify it and mess around with it and have some fun, then I would say go with the Ford. There's so much more available for the F-150. There's tuning, there's exhaust upgrades, turbo upgrades, intercooler, downpipes. The list is endless. The F-150 has been through a lot more testing, a lot more abuse. The power limits are known, the braking points are known. No one knows all of this stuff about the Hurricane engine yet. That being said, there is some piggyback tuning options from Burger Tuning, like the JB4 for the Ram Hurricane. However, this is not a custom tune like you can do on an F-150, so you won't be able to play around with the transmission. But now it's time for me to tell you guys what I promised I was going to tell you at the beginning of this video. The high output version of the Hurricane engine has a forged steel crankshaft, forged steel connecting rods, and forged aluminum pistons. But why does that even matter? Ram has a crate engine called the Cat X that is capable of 1,000 horsepower. Tom Bailey is using this engine in a vehicle on his YouTube channel, and I highly recommend going and checking that out. This means that you can possibly have your Ram high output Hurricane engine tuned to almost 1,000 horsepower without changing any of the internals. Now that is something Ford cannot do, not with a stock engine. Now there's plenty of guys with built Ecoboost engines who have dipped into the 9s in the quarter mile, which is absolutely mind-blowing. But with the Ram, there's a stock engine that you could have potentially at 1,000 horsepower. Something I touched on briefly earlier is that Ford's horsepower and torque numbers have a greater difference between the two numbers than Ram's numbers do. Well, we know that Ford gets its 500 foot-pounds of torque early on in the RPM band, and then it falls off as RPMs go up because Ford tapers the boost down. Ram's torque curve spikes up and then holds much flatter line across the RPM band, telling me that Ram holds boost into the higher RPMs much more than Ford does. And or they're running a slightly larger turbine in the turbos. And that brings me to the question, would you guys like to see me dissect a Hurricane turbo and compare it to a Ford F-150 turbo? And if so, leave a comment down below. And in case you were wondering, no, I'm not switching to Ram, and no, I'm not selling my F-150 to get a Ram, but kudos to Ram for what they have engineered. They definitely deserve some praise. I hope this video helps you make a decision on what truck is right for you, whether you want performance over towing capability, or if you want to be able to customize your truck or leave it completely stock. It's all up to you. I will not mock you if you get a Ram. They are pretty awesome trucks. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you go check out my other videos. There's going to be a link to one right after this on the end screen. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.